We would like to welcome our first sponsor to the Green Room, the Cannabis Superstore, Lakeshore Road, Etobicoke. Cannabis growing supplies and education company, providing cannabis education, premier gear, growing equipment, extraction equipment, genetics, federal compliance, health and safety, access to LP products they deliver. Located at 2775 Lakeshore Boulevard West in Etobicoke. They have an excellent Instagram page. Check it out, Cannabis Superstore, or give them a call, 647-748-2775. Guys, I'd like to introduce to the Green Room, Dr. Ira Price.
Woo!
Sir?
How's it going?
Very good.
Good day.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming in.
visiting us.
Well, I love this impromptu stuff.
Yeah.
Showing up.
It happens.
Just showing up and asking to use the washroom.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm here.
So tell us who Ira Price is. Doctor.
No, you tell me. I don't just Google it.
No,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't, yeah.
He stole
No,
my
don't.
line.
But I actually am kidding. Don't Google my name.
Oh, I actually say Google me.
Do
Google
you?
me.
Yeah.
It's all bad.
Obviously. Like, nobody who likes you is going to go online and be like, oh, I love this person. No one's got time for that. Only people that got no time. They're like, I just got his medical degree in a Cracker Jack box. I had the craziest stuff. You should read some of the stuff that's online about me.
I will tonight after this.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. If you can go to
Should we add the links to our Green Room podcast?
no, you should go to Rate MD. I have like 150. People are like just all over this.
Oh.
I saw this cocky asshole today and he didn't give me my drugs.
Oh man.
Yeah, so that's who I am. I'm the guy I'm that cocky asshole who got his medical degree in a Cracker Jack box.
Oh, really?
That's who I am.
So tell us, you're a family MD?
No.
He just told us. He made it up.
I'm actually okay. So who am I? Yeah, I am a Royal College specialist in emergency medicine with a fellowship in sports medicine, and I've been working though in cannabis since 2010. Opened up probably the first clinic in Canada back then. Definitely the first physician doing it on a long-term basis. There were some other docs that were doing it at the same time, most of whom were shut down, or we had a lot of issues in the beginning. I mean,
Hamilton? Was this all in Hamilton?
Yeah, but I mean, I had people coming from around North America, really. Even England, Ireland. Really? Oh yeah, okay. Scotland. You name it. People were coming from around the world because there was no other physician that was willing to talk about it for so long. So most of the docs that are out there now, or one way or another, either passed through some of my education, or I've helped in some way. Right. A lot of them, and there's some really amazing other doctors who are out there, like awesome people. I know you had one of them on here, Mike.
Dr. Hart. Yeah,
Dr. Hart.
Cool.
He's an awesome dude.
It's really cool. I love.
Yeah, he's great.
Stuff.
Super brilliant human. Mm-hmm. One of the smartest physicians I know. And yeah, so I've been working with cannabis, educating the masses, and mostly pharmacists, in the healthcare world for, almost a decade now. And when I started, it was pretty insane. It was like, and I always compare it to standing in the middle of a highway and cars coming on both sides, and in like in an environment that isn't tolerant, and I'm waving every banner, like every color of the rainbow with the gay pride, and everyone's trying to kill you on both sides coming at you. That's what it was like for me when I first came in.
That's like 2010.
That was 2010. There was no doctor. Every doctor I could think of just laughed at what I was doing.
So what exactly were you talking? What were you saying in 2010 about cannabis?
I was just prior to the opioid. Wasn't even prior. I'm an emerge doc. I work at Hamilton. I'm also a coroner in the city of Hamilton and Brantford, actually. So
coroner being you tell the cause of death.
Yeah, I go investigate. We go investigate death.
Opioids.
Yeah, I'd say like now it's about 1 in 3 of the deaths I go to. Everyone in Brantford. I'm just kidding.
He's not.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, but a lot of the deaths that I see, I would say 1 in 3 of the deaths I see right now on the street, like anywhere in the world, or in Hamilton, in our district. I don't know. I went from world to our district. Right. Is opioid related. Well, Hamilton has the worst opioid abuse problem in the world. That's just known fact. Canada, we're stuck. we're trying to get out of it. But I recognized that in like 2010 that I was just tired. I was working Emerge and I was tired of giving people coming in either overdosed, looking for meds, or an acute withdrawal, looking for narcotics. And I just had enough, and there had to be another way. It's funny, back then there are people whose names I won't mention on here.
Do it.
Who were
whisper it to me and I'll mention it.
Anyway, some of them are all right. I got a call one day in 2010 by a friend of mine, one of the first advocates for cannabis for like the last 20 years.
Is he on my Facebook?
No, he lives in Colombia now. His name's Ron Marzell.
Okay.
He's a lawyer. And one of my friends who Yigal, you're welcome. I just threw your name out. It's like, what? I'm convinced the dude's an arms dealer. But anyway, but he's not. I don't know. He has this farm and he's got all these. I shouldn't be saying any of this shit on here, bro. I'm just, not Ron. I'm saying Yigal. Yeah. Anyway, he's not. But he anyway. So, but a funny story about
drugs
that.
and guns. Anyhow.
Yeah. So
we'll get back.
They called me up in 2010 and they're like, do you know of a psychiatrist? So I know a lot of psychiatrists. What for? Says, well, we need somebody in Canada to, who can advocate and recommend cannabis. Back then it was MMAR. Before the MMPR.
Okay.
Before the So after Section 56 came, which was 1998, I think, 96 to 98, came the MMAR, marijuana for medical marijuana access program is what it called. It was like a whole you had to fill out
your whole life story.
Yeah, it was crazy. And you weren't, actually prescribing cannabis then. You still aren't. You were affirming that the patient sitting in front of you was using cannabis, which posed a lot of problems for physicians altogether, because somebody would come in front of you and they'd be like, oh, I'm using 40 grams a day. This is literally what was going on. So there's a lot of abuse happening then. What do you mean you're using 4? So a doctor who didn't know is like, yeah, 40 grams a day. And now they have the ability to grow, 200 plants.
Yeah.
That's what happened with the MMAR. But anyway, these guys called me up. Do you know anyone? I'm like, well, what for? And they said to recommend cannabis. And I'm like, cannabis? Bing, 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 bing. Like I went, I was in high school. And
I was in high school.
Yeah. And I like cannabis. To be honest, I actually stayed away from cannabis because of what I was trying to achieve for over a decade until it became legal, so that I would have the credibility.
Where'd you go to high school?
In Toronto. I went to a lot of them.
Okay.
I wasn't a great. I became a doctor, guys. Just no doctor right now. Okay, let's start there. Don't ask me that.
People like to know.
Yeah. I went to about 4 or 5 different high schools. It was tough for me.
Right.
High school wasn't for me. Well, I mean, it was for me, but I played rugby and I partied. That's what I did. I was playing hacky sack outside all day. It's weird because I was like the jock who played hacky sack.
Right.
And so it was great.
So you got a large genre of people.
Yeah.
See, this is why I hit these things. You get to find out what makes these people.
Fair.
Can you roll this while he talks?
Yeah, I can.
I know I talk too much. You want me to shut up?
No.
She's talking to me.
A podcast without speaking. We just sit here and look at you.
All right.
Keep talking.
So I'm like, sure, like this sounds like a good idea. It's weird. I'm an academic physician too. So I'm a professor, clinical professor at McMaster.
Okay.
And I had just graduated my residency.
Preach.
Right. It all sounds good. I got all these letters and numbers and shit. People believe for some reason if you add, and this is a problem of what I call it's called confirmation bias. You put a whole bunch of letters after your name, somehow somebody's going to believe you more. It doesn't fully make sense.
Or the lab jacket, like you put the jacket on.
Yeah, put a jacket on, all of a sudden your best friend.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I mean the truth is, so I'm an academic physician, and I went to a school that the university, McMaster, basically invented evidence-based medicine. And so I come from a very evidence-based background. And so I told these guys, I'm like, listen, of course I know cannabis, and actually at the time they were still using terms like marijuana. So I'll tell you, this is just an aside. Our drive and our mission, especially for me in the media and in medicine, to change that name from marijuana, as we know is not a good term,
right,
into cannabis, took almost a decade. Now look at it, like now even.
But my Health Canada letter that just came last week still says marijuana on it, and it's spelled wrong.
But they call it the ACMPR. Right? So they changed the word cannabis. Like cannabis became a word, in that was now generally uptaken or taken up. I don't know, whatever.
Either or.
Whatever. Doctor, yo. I just need to just know the little numbers. I can't even do big numbers.
Is your handwriting a mess too?
No, I wanted to write like my sister's, so I got really neat handwriting.
So you can read what you're writing. All right, that's unheard of.
Yeah. So this guy, so they called me up. Anyway, cannabis became a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you read, this is interesting. I got a lot of weird ass facts.
I like it.
In 1996, Canada has a really dark past when it comes to, we think racism and greed, same as the U.S. We think that Canada was a lot better, but the early 1900s were a horrible time here, specifically for Asian population. Anyway, 1996, this woman by the name of Diane Riley for the the Honorable Pierre Nolan, who was the Attorney General at the time. She wrote a long apology. You can read it. It's on the Parliament of Canada's website. At least it was a decade ago. They may have taken it down now. Anyway, so terms like cannabis and all this started to like gain favor. So it took us a long time to do that, but you'll see that now. So there is change through education. It just takes a long time. Anyway, so I got this call and they said, can you do this? I'm like, well, if I'm going to do this, because I'm an academic, we need to create...
Does it bother if sorry to interrupt. Does it bother if we smoke?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. I mean, I'd rather you vape.
Oh, you can tell us about that in a second.
All right. But I'd rather you vape
First.
dry flower, Phil. But anyway, so...
Hold up.
Okay.
So I said, in order for you guys, like if I'm going to do this, I'm not just going to start recommending or just say, I affirm your 50 grams a day and all this weirdness. We need to create some guidelines and so and a structure for the medical community, because eventually somebody's going to want to get into this, and eventually the college is going to come around and they're going to say, what makes you an expert? What are you doing here? And you can't just say, bro.
I smoked a lot of weed.
Bro, what should I recommend for this person? Right. You can't do that as a doctor. But a lot of doctors then were doing that because they didn't know better. So I said, let's have a little seminar. There were no seminars back like a decade ago.
About cannabis?
Right. Yeah. So he's like, all right. I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I need a seminar. I need a patient. I need somebody who, grows cannabis. I need somebody who knows the legal stuff around cannabis. I need to know somebody who bakes cannabis as well. All that stuff. So at Ron's house back in 2010, he brings together now some of my best friends. He brings Derek Pedro, who you guys know. He's now the grower at Weed MD. Okay. But Derek is very well known in the cannabis community, 25 years, 30 years. He brings Amy Brown, Amy Anonymous. So Derek is teaching me about extracting cannabis and the difference between, and that's where I was like, how to get like distillate, isolate, trichomes, all that kind of stuff was, Derek showing, really showing me how to break down the plant and do it yourself kind of picture. Right. Then you had Amy, who was baking at the time. She's one of the best bakers you'll ever meet, and her stuff is amazing. Great story about my wife at that, but I won't go into that. She'll get so mad. Yeah. And she'll get so mad. We like those stories. There was an MMAR patient there, a Section 56 patient there, and Ron there as a facilitator. That's where I really started to learn about how to do this. But then we needed guidelines and how do you dose cannabis. All the dosing you see in milligrams now and all that, it didn't exist then. Right. I created a formula to be able to take a percentage of, like, let's say it says 10% or 20% cannabis THC or 20, it's a 20% whatever sativa. What the fuck does that mean? Right. What does it mean? Right. So I had to create a formula to translate that into a milligram dose that we can give to patients. The U.S. was already had milligrams, but didn't have percentages. We had percentages, no milligrams. None of this shit was real. It was like, no one knows what the fuck's going on. The college comes around and says, what are you doing? So I created a dosing guideline, and that was the, the go low, start slow, go low, whatever. Right. So those general guidelines existed by another physician who was doing a lot of research, but wasn't really in the clinical space. So I translated all that into actual dosing guideline that now a lot of physicians use. Right. So
could any of this have affected your license?
Like, it all did. My license has been suspended for 3 months. I've been probably the longest investigated physician in the country. I've been continuously investigated for 8 years now. Now, that being said,
and I get opioids like candy from all the physicians
of course
I've gone to. But
initially, I think a lot of it may have been around the unknown of cannabis.
okay.
Then it started getting like really nitty gritty. Once you're on radar, you're on radar for good. I don't blame the college for doing what they do. You know, they have to protect the safety of society. That is their mission. Right. There comes a point where it's a lot, of course, and it gets overwhelming. But at the same time, I do believe that they have a role to play. I trust in what I'm doing. I trust in what I've done. So I feel okay and I am secure when they come around for the most part, because I believe in what I'm doing, and I never back down. Initially, I was told back down, stop doing this, and I said no, because we're
stigma.
Yeah, we got to break that stigma, and there's a lot worse things like opioids and narcotics, which kill people.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So,
but
that's
hard though. You put a lot at risk.
You're seeing that in Hamilton, like that's ground zero. It's right for all that stuff.
I did put a lot at risk. Cannabis, this industry is like it's like a love-hate relationship. You know, I'm a huge advocate for cannabis and wellness. I don't even I'm not a prohibitionist by nature, because it just doesn't work. Putting people in jail does never work. So, and I'm a wellness promoter, and cannabis is a wellness product, and so much more beneficial than harmful that in terms of risks than other medications that do similar things. So why not?
Why would you rather us vape? Especially when what you said, I'd rather you vape. But there's a vape crisis going on. Why did you just say that to us? Why would you rather us vape?
So
tell us.
Vaping is super interesting. Hold on, I'm going to cough.
Drink your water, Ira. That's why we give it to you. It's not just
I've been coughing for 2 months. Every winter I get this. 2 months. Won't go away.
Because of vaping?
No. This is post-viral. I got influenza back in October. I get that for about 2 weeks.
He used the doctor. This is post-viral.
Right. And now, so I had a virus. I had the flu. I had the flu back in October, and then I'll be coughing till probably February. Oh, it just sucks. So vaping. You know, vaping is pretty big in the media right now.
It's a topic.
Yeah, it's a topic about and the problems and toxicity with vaping different types of products, specifically around vaping, tobacco or not tobacco, vaping, e-juice, and cigarette, like all the nicotine stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. And then so we'll talk about that. Then I'll get into talking about vaping cannabis products.
Okay.
So vaping e-cigarettes and nicotine or whatever. Nicotine on its own is actually kind of beneficial in little amounts. Nicotine.
Okay.
Not the problems around nicotine. Mm-hmm. Nicotine is a stimulant, and it can do some good for you.
Okay.
Our receptors, we have receptors that uptake nicotine, and sometimes you can use it. It's good for even longevity in small amounts without smoking cigarettes. We're not talking nicotine cigarettes. I'm not talking like.
What are we talking?
Just the pure chemical nicotine, like that, in small amounts isn't. People use it all the time, just like in a liquid.
Well, they portray it to be the bad thing about cigarettes. That's what you always hear about people that smoke
nicotine
cigarettes.
is very addictive. Don't get me wrong. Nicotine is very addictive, and the toxins that are with it's like coffee. Basically, nicotine is like coffee, right? And all the toxins and the ways that we use nicotine are really harmful, like death by cancer. Right? Death by everything else. And it's inevitable. We just don't see it happen so quickly, so we think it's not bad for us. But you were guaranteed to die younger, like almost 100% if you smoke cigarettes. It's just what's going to happen.
Lester, we got a good thing going here. You better quit smoking cigarettes.
Listen, but let's go back. Let's get off the nicotine talk.
Yes,
and back to the...
Jackie's a squirrel.
So am I. So that's great. I'm a squirrel too. I feel like you're holding a squirrel right now.
I know.
That's like a fluffy ass squirrel.
That's Budsy, man.
Budsy's my emotional support dog.
Fucking these... Don't get me fucking started on emotional support dogs. I need an emotional support dog so I can go to the bathroom and we'll go up the stairs. No, for some people,
all right, come on, let's stay focused.
Okay, fine. All right,
I love
Jackie, we'll go off forever. So vaping.
Yeah.
So the problem with it is e-cigarettes or the liquid forms of these things. Anytime something is liquid, you probably should stay away from it because that is the toxin. So when you have a liquid, you have to keep it viscous. You have to keep it thick enough so that it's vaporizable. And in order to do that, you have to add adulterants to it. So you have to add something to it to make it a little more thick, or to keep it liquid.
Okay.
And those things can cause significant problems.
Like the vitamin E?
Like vitamin E acetate is very bad for you. That's actually the cause of the toxins. The vitamin E is the toxin. When it's vaped, you can ingest it and it's totally fine. A lot of these things are totally fine when you drink them, like coconut oil. You want to drink the shit? Go for it. Start fucking vaping it like it's not good for you anymore. Right? So they cause toxins. Specifically, vitamin E acetate is what causes the toxic buildup in your body very, very quickly. And then so that's the major problem with vaping is if you're vaping a liquid, it's got toxins in it, guaranteed. Now, you may come out and say, well, it's fully fucking natural.
Right.
This is a herbal medicine. It's herbal. It might be herbal until you start vaping it. Herbs can become toxic when they're heated up.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Even if
Is
it
it
says
the temperature?
organic.
Or any temperature.
It's the temperature. It's heating it up to a temperature that causes it to become active. At that level can become toxic. Dry flower, that doesn't happen with.
So the dry flower vapes.
Right. So dried flower vapes are fine. And as long as you're not vaping at a temperature that causes combustion. So anywhere under 200 degrees Celsius, you're totally fine. And we know THC vaporizes at 156 degrees Celsius and CBD vaporizes at 185, 86
Do we know
Celsius.
that?
Yo.
Okay,
I just told you, yo. See, you like that? I just dropped these fucking... I need a mic. I'm just going to start dropping
Shots fired.
Ira wants to be a regular.
You know what I mean?
He's taking the fuck over.
No.
Okay, go.
Not yet.
No, you asked me a question. I'm just answering. I'm going to shut up now. Now you made me feel bad. I feel bad.
No.
Jackie, you made me feel bad.
Speak freely,
No,
my
she's
friend.
making me feel guilty now.
That's what.
This will go viral. Jackie made me feel bad. Oh, no.
Jackie, you made me feel bad.
Oh, Jesus, Ira. It's funny. Do we have to call you
I have
doctor?
Jewish guilt.
So do
My
I.
mom, you have no idea.
I probably don't.
Yeah.
Do we have to call you doctor? Is that the rule?
You don't
in the
have
law?
to do whatever you do.
But
What
is there
makes
a
you
rule, or
feel
is it-
happy.
Oh, okay.
You do what makes you feel happy. I'm a human like you. You could call me Ira. You could call me Dr. Ira. You can call me Irie. You could call me whatever you want.
Does the Mister get dropped when the doctor
Yes.
comes? Oh, so there's no more Mister.
There's no Mister. It's Doctor. Yeah.
There's
You become
no Mister.
when
It's just doctor.
when you finish medical school and pass your board exams, the Mister gets dropped and it becomes Doctor
Forever.
forever.
Even if you're not practicing.
Even if you're
no
not,
longer, you're
as
a
long as you
doctor.
graduate, you don't have to have a license to practice medicine to be a doctor. You just have to pass your board exams to become a doctor. So I'll forever be a doctor.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Okay, so you personally, do you smoke cannabis?
I vape cannabis.
You vape.
Yeah,
cannabis.
once in a while I'll smoke, but to be honest, like it's I think vaping is
Safer?
I'm not a combustion fan. Yeah, it's a lot safer. Vaping dried flower, not liquid. If it moves, you shouldn't vape it
Okay.
because that has the toxins, the
If it
adulterants
moves,
in
you
it.
shouldn't vape
Right.
it.
If it's dried flower, you're fine.
What's-
You're not. What's that?
What's popcorn lung?
Yeah, so
What
that's
is that?
bad.
Is that what you have?
No, God, oh fucking not. So also super. The question is what causes popcorn lung.
Okay.
It's infection
Well, the
in your
question is,
lung.
what is popcorn lung? But
So,
you changed it.
So it becomes an inflammation in your lung from an infection. It's all bad.
Happens
it's
from
diseased.
vaping.
Yeah, it happens specifically from vaping specific toxins within the vape.
Okay.
And when we say vape, we're talking about liquid and liquid vaping. Yes.
Even CBD liquid?
It's so take out any chemical name,
That's a good question.
and as long as it's a liquid, it's bad for you. Because in order to vape that liquid, you have to have an adulterant.
Okay.
And even if they're organic, when you heat up organic shit, it still isn't good for you.
Right.
Right? So the flower,
Oh.
this plant.
That's news.
This is news. Keep going.
Yeah. So that's the problem with vaping.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
vaping the liquid. If you're, this plant, imagine you have a perfect plant, and then you just see the green cannabis plant because it's a perfect plant. That plant was meant to be used.
Right.
Right. And so, and all the stuff, and it contains all the stuff you need. You don't need to make it a liquid to vape it. It contains everything you need. Now, if you're trying to make an isolate or a distillate, you just shake it out and use that.
I press it. I have a rosin press. I press it and
so
just smoke that. What do you think of rosin?
Right. So,
So, when he gives me a whatever.
No, that's an interesting question because nothing is added to it.
Okay.
Nothing is, but it gets super hot.
And it's bad for you?
It's
so dabs are bad?
I mean, they're better than... It's a good question. I don't know if there's been any studying on dabs, but the... you have
lots of time,
I have a shadowrizer.
So do I.
So, but anyways...
Shadowrizer.
Yeah. But no...
I have a shadowrizer.
You can... There's... I don't think there's very much evidence around that yet. So I would just caution around using, dab rigs.
Okay.
And as long as you're vaping it, the problem with the dab rig is these things get so fucking hot. You have to be careful that you're not combusting it. That's all. Combustion is not good. What you can do is hook your dab rig up to a bong and then, or your vape to a bong if you want to do that, and then you can use it that way. There are vaporizers that actually connect to your bong so that you can. I have a vaporizable dab rig.
Okay.
And
that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But it's good to talk about this because right now it is the highlighted subject.
We're listening to him while stoned and high, and I've been sucking on that vape for the last 2 hours. And I'm like, shit.
You've actually brought something on the table that I didn't know about. I'm definitely curious about that.
He thinks about it while he's smoking his cigarettes. He ponders all this.
Oh man!
I'll tell you, the study that just came out showed that vaping will protect you from the cancers that you get with smoking. But vaping those e-cigarettes, you're going to develop lung disease a lot quicker than you will if you're smoking regular cigarettes.
When you said quick, when you were saying the vaping can get you sick quick, how quick?
Like within 3 years.
Really?
Wow. Yeah. That was a study that came out yesterday, I think.
Wow.
Now, there's been some recent deaths from vaping.
Yes.
Right. Now,
7 or 9?
There's been probably 8,400 cases in the U.S., 49 deaths. Ooh. I like how you like it. I'm just going to drop that.
No, I don't mind the drop because it just allows us to get into it further. Because what would you say is the number of people vaping in that state?
Tons, thousands and thousands.
Hundreds of
people.
thousands.
Hundreds
right?
of thousands. But nobody, like if I say, hey, I had a cigarette yesterday, nobody's dropping dead in 49 days from having a cigarette. Mm-hmm. But they are dropping dead from vaping these liquids.
Right.
And we know how fucking bad smoking is for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that, we can't even do studies because we know it's going to kill you.
Did you ever smoke?
Yes. I did.
He's my favorite doctor. Sorry, Dr. Hart, you're a hottie, but
I know he's such a good looking dude. I know. I don't know what to say. That guy is like that fucking keto shit.
He's plant-based or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, what I find the doctors, Dr. Mike, it's like a new gen. You guys are a new gen.
How do other doctors feel about you guys?
I find you guys are approachable.
But how do other doctors feel about you guys? Are other doctors hating you?
You're like worse than me.
I'm like, scroll.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, hold on.
Partners.
You go.
Okay.
Who wants to ask me first?
You go. Say what?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask how other doctors feel about you. Like Dr. Hart was saying the same, like there's some resistance in the practice and there's some things he can't say publicly and can say, and there's some things
your
he can't
peers.
do. Yeah, your peers. How do they feel about all this cannabis talk?
I'll
For
tell
the
you,
most part.
When I started practicing 5 years before most other doctors got into it, everyone was laughing at me. Mm-hmm. What are you doing? They just thought I was like, oh, there's Ira doing his usual tricks. And that's sort of how I also like to come across. I'm not even though I'm serious in my mind, I like to do it all with, I love every moment of what I do. So I come across as almost flippant sometimes to people and careless and callous, but I'm not.
Right.
Everything I do is quite calculated. It's just that's who I am by nature, is a fun sort of human. So my colleagues all just laughed at what I was doing. There he is again, and especially like I started with it here, and actually I started in Toronto of all. There was nobody in Toronto back then either, and everybody was just like sort of laughing at it. Cannabis. Oh, actually marijuana. That's what they were using. Marijuana, weed. Oh, I'm gonna smoke a joint and da da da. I'm like, joints are in my legs and weeds grow in my yard, yo. So let's change that conversation. That's how I started.
Right.
And pot. I'm like, I put things in pots. So we had to start the conversation somewhere.
Humor, man. Humor.
And destigmatizing came through humor and also changing words like pot, weed, and joints.
Okay.
I changed those, worked really hard to change those things. And no matter how many times people laughed, because people have been laughing at me my whole life, and so I'm used to that. There's nothing but I have DR in front of my name now, motherfucker.
Yeah!
There's no laughing. Like, they can laugh all they want, but I've been successful doing what I do. So I don't mind. And then over time, and really I was doing it, one, out of passion, and two, for really my patients and the people, and society as a whole, because I had enough of narcotics. So I didn't care if people laughed at me then. I cared mostly what the college thought. And unfortunately, they just never, when you're the only person and the first person, you don't have a movement. You're an outlier, is what I was saying.
Yeah.
And so I was an outlier, and I was an outlier probably till 2 years ago. When
outlaw or an outlier?
Outlier. I wasn't an outlaw. I was still everything I did was legal within the the confines of law. I would never do anything to breach that, and I still wouldn't. And so I was an outlier. Eventually, people, through education, through me literally going out and talking to small doctors' offices. Sometimes I've had 2 people, sometimes I had 4 people, sometimes I had 5,000 people, and everything in between. And I'd go out and slowly talk to them. And even when there's an article from 2013 when I had my suspension and from the college.
First suspension?
Yeah, the only suspension.
Okay,
it was a 3-month suspension. I think a lot of it was miscommunication, but at the end of the day, I've learned a lot from it. There was nothing I did wrong with cannabis. They didn't like how I charted on a patient. I was writing in black and blue ink. I don't know. It's very.
I have the same problem.
The whole thing is really strange, but at the same time, I did learn a lot about from that experience. It's actually a good experience because I also stayed on top of all the whole cannabis industry. I was lucky enough to have legal teams, and the college was asking me questions that we needed more people. Like, I needed to know about billing, I needed to know about what the law was, I needed to know about what cannabis, all this stuff. So I had
legal teams doing that. This is where it drops into my question.
Challenge.
Damn right.
Creates change.
Yeah, so
Dr. Ira.
I was super lucky enough to have that kind of. It was an experience that nobody ever wants to go through, of course, but it was an experience that I learned a lot from, and so I was able to stay on it. And eventually, physicians started changing. When I first started, I would say
all or a little.
I say 97% of my patients were self-referred when I started. 99.9% of my patients are all referred from physicians now.
Wow.
And I have over 400 physicians that refer.
Is that just because you're into cannabis and you are passionate, you are educated, you are a diamond in the rough right now in the medical industry?
I think I'd like to think that maybe I wasn't for the first 5 to 8 years, but now I'd like to think that physicians have really come around to the use of medical cannabis. Like, people that were 100% against it have turned around.
What I'm finding,
I was 100% against it.
Well,
I was drinking my wine and
taking
my Advance.
I'm starting to change my opinion of the medical world as I'm seeing for the ones of you that dwell inside the world of cannabis. Like I was going to say, my question.
Before Jackie so rudely interrupted.
Never rudely. Everything has to be said. That's why this table's...
Jackie, you're so rude also. I'm just kidding. Jackie, you're amazing.
I'm so rude.
No, well...
I love
Dr. Mike, yourself, you guys are, what I find in the medical world, you guys are people first. I feel that you are people first before physicians. You're approachable. And that is the first thing that a patient, a client needs to be able to sit in that room, to be able to express what they're feeling.
Even now, I'm lying to everyone. When you could Google me or see whatever, I don't like to tell the doctors that I'm using cannabis.
Yeah, you guys, you're creating something brand new.
People have.
I was losing faith in the medical industry.
Yeah, I lost faith in the medical industry too. There's a really, really dark underbelly to medicine.
Fueled by greed.
Fueled by I would say old stigma, right? And the old traditional way of teaching medicine comes from how everything is sort of happened, and that's through standardization. The Industrial Revolution really caused the way that we learn today, right? Standardization and the lack of individuality and humanity was lost through that standardization, and medicine became the same way. And we need we need standardization. You need standards, right? But at the same time, you don't want to lose the humanity. So for so long, you had a very rigid world. And so the way that people practiced medicine was very traditional. Western medicine was very standardized, and the people that came out were a product of that generation. And today, I'd like to think that we've come quite far. I think globalization and has now really changed that. Like, we have the ability to talk to people that we would never have spoken to on the other side of the world, and so we're experiencing a lot more. And hopefully, in the physicians coming out now, we're not just interested in work. We want it's now a life work balance, and those people are more human. So you see people like Dr. Hart, who's
He's human.
A genius, but he's also a human. And we're not perfect. We got flaws. We're not like that. And my goal in medicine isn't to tell, and there's no that patriarchy of take your pills, come back in 3 weeks and come back in a month, and if you don't take them, go fuck yourself, isn't really what my mission is. My mission is to facilitate your health. I'm here to collaborate with you, and you get to make your decisions, not me.
Facilitate your health.
You like that?
Yeah, I do.
It's a good drop.
That's weird hearing it from a doctor.
Well, that's why I had to bring.
Right.
That's why I had to make that note. You
That's a good
you
point.
guys are different, and that's huge because right now what we're seeing is that there's a lot of mental health issues that aren't physical.
There's some right at this
Right,
table.
the depression, anxiety, and insecurity.
Yeah.
And those will stop people from being able to talk. And if we can't be in a space of people like yourself, Dr. Mike Hart, that make you want to open up, that make you want to talk, that is the difference.
What's next for plant medicine? Do you think psilocybin, like mushrooms?
Psilocybin.
Sorry.
I'm working on it. Don't worry.
Are you?
Obviously.
Yeah,
we're going to bring back all plant-based medicine because there's been a history of we have a long history of
yeah, of course. Than marijuana, cannabis.
No, cannabis may have been the first plant on the planet. I don't know. It depends who you listen to.
But our research was before mushrooms and stuff.
So psilocybin psilocybin research has been going on since probably the Vietnam War, but and cannabis or THC was identified as a substance in the 60s, right, by Meshulam, and but I think altogether plant-based medicines, these are traditional medicines and we were using them for so long. Problem is so this comes back to standardization. We had no way to standardize them prior to the pharmaceutical industry coming out, and so synthetics took over, and the greed took over and all that, and so they demonized like these traditional medicines. But now we're in a world that's a little more woke and has the ability to standardized traditional medicines.
Right.
So, and they're safer for you. So every medicine, every drug has a side effect. I don't care if you're taking a heart pill or a narcotic,
vitamin C
or vitamin C or vitamin E,
right?
Or every single thing has a side effect profile to it. We tend to focus on all the, the media loves to do this. The media loves to focus on all the negatives of cannabis. And that was my problem for so long. One of the reasons why everyone was laughing is because the media had one image. They had the image of this dude smoking a fucking blunt that was probably the size of a telephone pole, being like, everybody's a pothead, as we're trying to talk about medical marijuana.
Right. Yeah.
And so that was the image that was around for so long. So that's the stuff that we're trying to combat now.
And that's a huge fight.
It's huge, but I think we've made some headway.
I'm a little older than you, but weren't you like Nancy Reagan? This is your brain on drugs. That's how I was raised. So, right. Unless 100%. It came from a prescription from your doctor, you don't take it. Everything else is bad, and your doctor wasn't going to prescribe marijuana.
The Reagan administration was like a huge problem. for the war on drugs. There was no war on drugs. It was put money in my pocket to incarcerate people.
Right.
And
that's business.
It's business. It was all big business. And if you actually look at a lot of the stuff, like a lot of the rulings in the U.S. were like, this substance is the safest substance on the planet. Legalize it. Okay, it's now illegal.
Yeah.
Like it was the opposite of all these things. You can actually read that was in Diane Riley's
I thought
dissertation.
He whispered Diane Riley.
No, I was just losing my
The voice dropped out.
Yeah.
So, what do you feel personally? Are you allowed to say about mushrooms personally or no?
I'll talk about whatever.
Yeah.
You know that. It's not, when I talk personally, anything I say ever, it's going to be personal. I believe in what I'm doing. So,
I just had on Monday, was that yesterday or 2 days ago? I had a doctor from McMaster that I think I told somebody that they wanted to remain anonymous, and that all the people they were interviewing wanted to remain anonymous as well. And I was the first person that wanted to be part of their study that would talk about it publicly with my use of mushrooms. I was using on Seroquel and Wellbutrin and Cipralax and Ativan,
all of which will kill you. Could potentially.
And now I have kidney failure, liver failure. I have spots all over, and I'm full of everything.
Yeah.
So I stopped and I use mushrooms.
Yeah.
I make teas and I tinctures and I grind it up myself and have it all. And I have a lot of cool. Everyone's like, well, where do you get them? I have a lot of interesting friends. And, I'm good.
There are farms being built right now in Canada. The problem is, I just hope it doesn't do the same thing that happened to cannabis. You have the advocates. All of a sudden, all these people start coming in. They fuck the whole thing up. Hopefully, it'll be a vertically integrated system. That's the goal.
Learn a little bit of a lesson.
Yeah, I hope people have learned a lesson, but that is, I think, the next wave. I mean, I'm still a huge cannabis fan for pain. Just about to publish a study. I just finished a 1,200 patient study on the use of cannabis.
For pain in athletes? Is that what you were?
Mine was for it's called COS, Cannabis for Opioid Substitution Therapy trial. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So we're just waiting to get it published, the manuscript. It's hard to publish cannabis manuscripts because whatever.
Well, it's hard to even talk about it on social media. You get shadow banned or blocked, or you get it deleted.
Oh yeah, YouTube has closed down I think probably because I swear a lot, but the higher like my podcast.
Yeah.
I get warnings all the time.
That's I do for social media, and that's what I do, and I lose.
Oh, you get emotional and you speak.
I only lasted 20 hours on TikTok. I got banned.
Really?
Thanks so much, Cannabis Wiki guys. They asked me to start a TikTok. Started talking about Cannabis Wiki. It didn't work out so well. No, and
what happened?
Super. I posted one was at the Cannabis Awards. And I had hashtag cannabis and the LIFCO award thing, and it's just a nice video of us coming in and doing some interviews and then leaving.
Royal York, right?
Yeah, at the Royal York. And then so like 20 minutes after I posted it, it said it was against community standards, and I was like, this is a really beautiful video, and it's really nice. It's just pictures. I have a few hashtags, but anyhow. Then I put up another one that evening, about 4 or 5 hours later, and it was a video of me. Because I grow, and it was sort of a progression, like it showed a quick what do you call it when like a fast moving pic, like from the seed to
what's that, a time lapse. It was a time lapse with some
good
word. I just heard that word.
So it was a time lapse on TikTok with some cool music. I think it was Cardi B
on the spot's tripping out over there,
and and they took it down, and then I got an email and I got a post, and I lost it for 7 days, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, you know what, TikTok is not for me.
Plus, then you saw an ad for OxyContin.
Exactly, and
it's so weird.
It's ridiculous.
It's so much stigma. Like people don't,
It's big business.
Yeah,
big corporation.
Even like the sports arenas around the rafters where they, around the ice where they advertise opioids and stuff, like pharmaceuticals, alcohol can advertise.
Athletics,
cannabis can't.
I know that you were talking about that previously with Dr. Mike and all that stuff.
It's difficult.
I think that obviously the next big movement is within athletics. You have
MLB just did this week, right?
MLB did it for their minor leagues, which is a good start. The CFL, obviously, I used to work with the CFL. I was an assistant team doc for the Ticats when I did my fellowship and a little bit after with Dr. Levy. And the things that I can after each game, these guys take some big hits, right?
I freaking partied with a lot of those guys.
Yeah, back in the day.
And the stuff that we had access to.
Yeah, so they would come in at the end of a game and be like, Doc, can I get my home plates? They didn't even know the name of the medications. They just know that, it's one of your benzos kind of thing that has like baclofen, looks like a home plate. Or can I get the slits? And those are their T3s.
Oh.
And people would just hand these things out. So I was finally, and this is what, I mean, people didn't like me back then. I'm like, just go home and smoke a joint, bro. Like, enough with this. And the addiction that exists within the sporting world is it's over 70%.
Well, it has to be in order for those guys to do what they do.
With a bunch of professional football players.
They sacrifice their body.
But nobody will talk about it, and it's inbred from the time that they're junior players. Take this, go play.
Right.
Take this, go play. And so the issue isn't the player. The issue is the system within, even the minors
that creates these
and
addicts.
Amateur sporting, and even before that in high school, where they're told to go play with all these injuries. Nobody gives a shit about you. You just got to go play and win us games.
Right.
That's the
This
problem.
is pretty harsh because it could have us looking at something we used to call entertainment as farm.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's harsh.
It is harsh. It's a problem. We got to somehow figure out how to change and it's slowly changing the athletic system. I'll tell you, in 2017, even so, I know this is before most people even knew cannabis was a thing. So while we were still talking about cannabis and trying to make it a big deal in North America, WADA, who is they're the guys, the anti-doping agency.
For the Olympics.
Yeah. So WADA took CBD off the banned substance lists back in 2017. So that September, maybe it was 2018. It was a September. I can't remember. I was in California. I just remember when I read it. It may have been 2018. I can't remember exactly. But they were like one of the first people to do it. And then it comes off of USADA because WADA dictates what the U.S. does. And so CBD was taken off 2 years ago. So the progression was slowly starting to happen, mostly because Nick Diaz, when he started the whole thing in the MMA. But the progression is slowly happening. Hopefully the NFL will come around to it. A lot of people are coming around to it, and I think sports, you guys talk about it often, is the next wave of. And
it's not just head injuries. There's mental health when you retire and when you leave sports. Yep. It's debilitating for a lot of these athletes.
I'm gonna say I'm not a big fan of cannabis for mental health.
You're not?
No, not at all.
But mushrooms?
Yeah, psilocybin. The evidence is there. The evidence for cannabis and mental health isn't very good. Things like ADHD, it's okay for. CBD on its own is probably good for anxiety or depression, but THC just worsens these things over time. It may help them in the short term, but in the long-term studies, it may worsen it. So I would stay away from THC for depression or anxiety and just
look out,
hit
Lester.
CBD.
I'm about to go crazy.
Yeah.
Progressively. Over time, shit's gonna fly in the green room.
You're on simmer right now, so
we gotta
good.
wrap this up. We could talk to Dr.
There's so many things.
Days and
that was fun,
guys.
guys.
Well, I love men that have knowledge. I love people that have knowledge to share.
He loves men that have knowledge.
He likes men. That's the next progression.
I like people.
Yeah, I like people too. I like humans. I always say like people fuck shit up. Humans are all the same.
People fuck shit up.
It's true. It's true.
We need a lot more of that, and the community is so important.
There's so much more we can talk about. I want to talk to you about like Ganjanistas and the Hope thing.
Well, we'll
and
just
all
have
the
to
stuff
have
going
a
on.
number 2.
Yeah, we have to because
we'll definitely get
Lester,
the number 2.
Close it up, but ask everyone where they can find Dr.
Yeah,
Mike.
man. So
Dr. Mike.
people...
I called him Dr. Mike. Oh, we mentioned him too many
I'll take
times.
that as a compliment. He's a good looking dude.
Ira, you're a good looking dude too.
That guy is like.
Look at, I got Judar. I'm in love with the Jews. I am.
Man. So Dr. Ira Price, tell the people where can they find you.
So yeah, thanks. You could check me out on Instagram at dr.iraprice. And you can check me out on my podcast called The Higher Estate. All the usual suspects.
Everywhere podcasts are
Spotify, Apple, blah, blah, blah. Synergy Health TV online on YouTube. Sometimes it's up. And so check out my social media. That would be awesome. Give me a follow.
Definitely.
For sure. Give him a follow.
Yeah.
Slide into his DMs.
That's it.
You got to ask that magic question.
What is the magic question?
The shout out.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, this is where we ask our guests to just say who you are, and thanks for having me on the Green Room.
My name is Dr. Ira Price, and thanks for having me on the Green Room.
Did you hear how his voice changed?
You like that? I went into my radio voice.
Oh, can you do it like that? Can you do it
What's
again
that?
like that? Yeah, like that.
Hey, my name is Dr. Ira Price, and thanks for
I
having
love
me
it.
on the green room.
Thanks for coming.
Guys, you know where that cannabis talk is always fresh and a little bit sticky. Keep it locked to Cannabis Week, the green room, and we're out.
That's like Lester's favorite.
I
part of
like
the
that.
show.
That's fucking awesome. Little sticky. I couldn't remember that shit. I like that. That
See
was
you
awesome.
guys.
Thanks
All
for
right,
having
guys.
me.
Peace.